The firms we've been discussing with have been entirely used to the fact of dark pools being existent in the equity markets and other traditional markets. And a lot of firms might not know this, or especially some of the retail crowd might not be aware that over half of US equities volume is done in dark pools. And that is for that reason of market impact, information leakage, and tipping firms' hand to the market. So this is apparent in equity markets and to our client base. So this was a very high demand to an institutional dark pool in the crypto markets. And a lot of firms were affiliating dark pools with decentralized exchanges in a way, but that is not entirely the same product at all, because a lot of these on-chain transactions are completely transparent and work against the interests of those institutions, especially while executing these large block trades.
Alrighty, everybody, what is going on? Welcome back to another CYPRX video breakdown. In today's video, we're going to be doing an updated institutional dark pool and delta analysis on XRP price targets, coupled with a fundamental outlook to start the week off fresh, to give you guys insights into what possible outcomes could unfold given the fundamental environment that we are set to experience in the coming days, considering now the government shutdown has ended and we are set to experience a slew of data releases playing catch up with some economic reports that were withheld from the market in prior trading sessions. Make sure that you guys are paying very close attention, as here at CYPRX, we deliver some of the most accurate technical analysis on the face of the internet via our institutional algorithmic insights. So first, taking you guys over here just to give you guys an update on what we've been talking about, to show you that we deliver this information and these price feeds days in advance, publicly and in our private CYPRX community. Here is a post from November 14th playing catch up with you guys. I said, when the fundamental landscape flips back risk on and uncertainty and headwinds are behind us, XRP will easily hit these levels, $3.82 through $5.17. However, our institutional software has also shown dark pools sitting at each of these levels, and our algorithms haven't missed yet. For now, my accumulation targets are $2.21, which as of time of recording has now been hit, $2.06, $1.90, and $1.56. So playing it by ear and taking a look at the fundamental backdrop, that will definitely open the door for these possible downside targets this week if we see a risk-off market sentiment prevail, which we will get into here in just a second when we read our private CYPRX community report going over the fundamental backdrop from November 16th, 2025. But before we get into that, let's just again go and take a look. And so here you can see, utilizing the Twitter analytical tool, copying it over to TradingView and showing you guys that I put this post out on November 14th, 2025, when XRP's price was trading roughly at about $2.33 to $2.32. Our first institutional dark pool has been hit at around $2.19. It seems like sellers are gaining the upper hand on buyers right now, which we'll go over here in just a second, taking a look at the order flow. But my first accumulative area on XRP had been met. I facilitated some buy positions personally, again, not financial advice, at roughly about $2.21. Next, I will be taking a look at $2.06. And if the sentiment sours, the next institutional dark pool comes in at about $1.90, and the one beneath that comes in at about $1.56. Now, heading over here to the private CYPRX Discord, just to show you guys our updated info that our institutional scalper gives, again, a gentleman with over 13 years of professional hedge fund experience. You can see same thing that I gave you guys via publicly on Twitter, giving you guys these levels in advance. He actually talks through price action with our private community members and gives them daily updates. Here you can even see, this is from Thursday, November 13th. He sent a screenshot with institutional order flow mentioning that we saw buyers trapped at highs and that the most likely scenario was that XRP's price was going to come in to $2.21 to $2.06, as you guys can see right there. Sure enough, as we continue to scroll down, here are the updated deltas, looking at the timestamps. This is from Thursday, November 13th. And you can see right down here, we have the institutional dark pools. This is when XRP's price was trading at $2.31. We had our algorithms highlight $2.19, $1.90, and $1.56. And now, fast forwarding to today, you can see that XRP's price has come straight down almost to the freaking pip. Look at this, guys and gals, to the freaking pip of the dark pool at $2.19, where buyers tried to make an attempt to defend, but sellers have now gained the upper hand. If price stays beneath this dark pool and we break beneath the $2.06 range, that is likely going to open the door for deeper price retracements. Nonetheless, going back over to the Discord to show you guys these continued updates, mind you, again, we gave these levels well in advance. This screenshot was sent out, taking a look at this, Thursday, November 13th. As we continue, our institutional scalper mentioned on Friday, November 14th, today as of recording is Sunday, November 16th, he mentioned that yesterday's trap buy order, the blue box, trapped can fuel a move to the downside, right? And so again, all this information is given to our private community members well in advance. This is back when XRP's price was trading at about $1.32. And now we're seeing lower prices. This is just to show you guys that here in this community, we give accurate analytics. And so if you guys want those insights and you're tired of the bullish moonboy hopium, you're tired of the misinterpreted and misled information that exists out there amongst the retail crowd, where every single month after month, they come out with these outrageous price predictions that are never met. Well, it is because they don't have access to real institutional insights, change the game, and tap in with us here at CYPRX. Now, as we continue to go down, you can see the most recent updates is that he mentioned that yesterday's price action, we saw buyers trapped. The red line indicated that, and that red line came in, that volume came in at about $2.28. So buyers were trapped at about $2.28. And since then, price action has retraced down into lower targets. So just showing you guys that these levels that we give, not only publicly, right, putting our money where our mouth is at, not afraid to display our technical analysis to the general public, but also the insights that we give to the private CYPRX community are also extremely accurate. Now, the gentleman that you listened to at the very beginning of today's call, this is the CEO and co-founder at GoQuant. Before we head over to the fundamental analytics, listen to this gentleman go on to confirm that the primary reason as to why crypto prices are down is due to the risk-off market sentiment.
So, I mean, of course, it's a big event. Everyone, especially towards Q4, is having this end of year bullishness, expecting it to break the 150 or 125 highs previously. But this is really a turn of events. And I think a large part of this is due to a cooling off period after the liquidation events about a month ago. And the other part could be due to some of the expectations with the Fed and geopolitical tensions.
It's fair to say, with equity markets behaving also quite poorly today, that this is a general risk-off thing, not crypto-specific, although new crypto adopters tend to think of any kind of drawdown in crypto prices as being the end of the asset class.
Now, I couldn't agree more with what they are saying, which is why I'm going to cover the fundamental backdrop and continue to tell you guys that, in my personal opinion, again, not financial advice, and what I will be doing is I will be accumulating XRP and many other blue chip digital assets at lower price levels, because I'm expecting a price recovery once the market sentiment that we're currently experiencing, i.e. risk off, the headwinds that have weighed recently on crypto prices are in the rear view mirror. The regulatory landscape is clear. The most likely outcome is that we are going to see a huge recovery in the digital asset ecosystem after it finds its footing. So before I get into, again, the updated intraday technical analysis, taking a look at some lower levels and some possible outcomes, let's paint those outcomes for you guys. Let's just clear some of this off the charts, go to the higher time frame, and dig into the fundamental backdrop. Now, this is the boring stuff that most people on the internet will never pay attention to. Here at CYPRX, not only do we deliver accurate technical analysis, but we also deliver educational insights into the fundamental backdrop. So pay attention, because in this fundamental report that I wrote for the private community members this rising, we go over risk on and risk off scenarios that could unfold this week that could either support or continue to weigh on market sentiment. What I love about this is that in real time, you can actually see some of the private community members up at the top right-hand corner reading this report. Let's go over these scenarios. These are very important to pay attention to this week. So for the markets to rally this week, of course, we would like to see a dovish leaning Fed in the meeting in minutes that is likely to come out. That is coming out on Wednesday, however, relatively unlikely. But outside of the meeting in minutes, the incoming economic data needs to show the economy is slowing just enough for the Fed to feel comfortable cutting rates in December, but not slowing so much that it looks like a recession is coming. That means jobs data should cool a little, showing fewer new hires and slightly higher unemployment claims without showing mass layoffs. Inflation indicators should soften too, proving price pressures are easing. At the same time, the consumer needs to hold up, which is why Walmart's earnings are important. They'll show whether Americans are still spending, and Nvidia's earnings will tell us if the AI boom is still alive, which is critical for tech and risk assets like crypto. Weekly ADP job creation should come in softer, showing slower hiring without signaling major layoffs, as I mentioned. The S&P flash PMIs and the New York Fed Service survey should show slight slowing, but stay in expansionary territory, proving that the economy is still moving just at a cooler pace. The University of Michigan inflation sentiment also needs to come down, showing consumers believe inflation is easing. Nvidia needs to report strong demand for AI chips, and Walmart must show that consumers are still spending. If labor softens mildly and inflation expectations cool, economic activity holds above the 50 grade threshold in PMIs but cools from previous readings, and earnings stay solid, rate cut odds will likely rise again. That would almost certainly spark a risk on rally in stocks, tech, and crypto. Under this scenario, rate cut odds could move back up towards 50 to 65%, enough to spark a crypto rebound and revive equities into the month end. So, pausing right there, if we were to take a look at this scenario in terms of technical analysis and see this unfold this week, or the majority of these events unfold supporting a risk on backdrop, taking a look at XRP's price action, then the most likely outcome is that we are going to find a footing at one of these institutional dark pools, and we're going to start to see a market recovery. So, the first scenario that I could possibly see this week, considering that we are currently hovering at around $2.19, the first institutional dark pool, is if we start to see a risk on backdrop and these current levels hold, then we're likely going to start to see buyers defend, accumulate orders at these levels, trap sellers, and start to rekindle some of the losses from last week. We would obviously, of course, need to push above where buyers were trapped at about $2.28 to $2.30 before the market sold off last week. If we can break above $2.38 and we can turn that into a support, that would open the door for a recovery back into the institutional sell delta at about $2.61, rekindling most of last week's and the previous week's losses. If we were to break above $2.61, that would then open the door for some higher prices on XRP, taking it level by level. The first level above $2.61 is $2.83. I will pause right there. We will most likely get another update before those levels are reached. I will try to update you guys midweek for any of those updates. Another scenario that I am paying attention to is if the current sentiment continues to dampen and we do see lower prices, but then later on in the week, the market sentiment recovers, we could see buyers step back in at lower levels. Those lower levels are about $1.90 and $1.56, where if those levels are met, I will be paying very close attention to accumulation patterns to see if buyers can trap sellers at lows. We can turn these levels into support, and we can see a market sentiment turn around and start to break into higher territory. For now, the door is still open for those levels to come into fruition, but we need to see sellers overpower buyers at these current levels in order for any of that to happen. I'm setting alerts and alarms at these lower levels just in case, but do know that if these levels do come into fruition, I will be looking at some possible buying opportunities on XRP, as I do believe buyers will defend at these levels. And if we see strength and buyers overpower sellers, we could start to see a market recovery from these lower prices. An extreme risk-on environment and a complete rekindling of the market sentiment from previous weeks, where we see the easing narrative come back into the forefront, and we see the data that supports an aggressive rate cut cycle heading into the next FOMC meeting, December, I believe it's 9th through the 10th, if I'm not mistaken, and heading into 2026, and the market starts pricing that in, we could 110% see a full-blown recovery of the October drop in price, where we saw a massive liquidation in XRP's price, and that would push us well above $2.83 back towards the $3.11 range. Heading over to the risk off scenario. This is the scenario that all of us, obviously, of course, don't want to see. Unless you are really akin to buying at lower levels, then this is exactly the scenario that you would like to see this week in order for those lower prices to come into fruition. So, covering the risk off scenario. A risk off mood would likely take hold if we see an overall hawkish leaning Fed, especially in the meeting in minutes, and if this week's data shows that the economy is still running too hot, or if inflation remains stubbornly high. If weekly ADP job creation jumps, unemployment drops, or the labor market still looks resilient, the Fed will see no urgency to cut rates, and the market will likely assume that there won't be a December rate cut. That alone could trigger more sideways price action, or worse, more sell pressure, especially if the S&P PMIs or New York Fed Services data shows business activity is heating back up instead of cooling. The situation gets worse if at the end of the week, the University of Michigan report shows consumers expect higher inflation, because that makes rate cuts even harder to justify. Add in any disappointing NVIDIA earnings reports, especially if they warn that AI demand is slowing, and any weak Walmart data showing that consumers are pulling back in spending, the market would most likely start to price in the worst possible setup: higher inflation, slowing growth, i.e. stagflation, and no rate cut relief. In that case, December and 2026 rate cut odds would fall even further, and the markets would likely price in that financial conditions are set to stay tight for a prolonged period of time. Risk assets like crypto and tech stocks would almost certainly see no extreme bullish recovery or even more downside pressure, as investors would likely rotate into defensive mode and safer assets. Now, I'm not going to read the remainder of the report. However, some things that we are paying very close attention to is a possibility of any yen intervention due to excessive yen weakness. And we're also being very mindful of any updates around Trump's tariff battle ongoing with Congress, as any vote against Trump's tariffs would likely prove to be a wild card in market sentiment and deliver a shock of global uncertainty, which could definitely create more downside pressure in riskier assets and a flight to safe haven assets. So in the event of the risk off backdrop that I just read to you guys, and we cannot see buyers trap sellers at these current levels and break back above the dark pools at about $2.19, then that is most likely going to open the door for deeper retracements down into about $1.90 as our first intraday bearish target on our radar. And any worsening sentiment, if price breaks below $1.90, opens the door for us to be paying attention to possible areas of interest at around $1.56. Now, I will make sure to update you guys throughout the week as volatility and market price action and sentiment prevails. I hope that you guys really, truly enjoy these accurate and realistic updates, throwing you guys no retail-based hype, really just utilizing institutional insights via dark pools, deltas, and fundamental backdrops that just goes to show why here at CYPRX we have a level of accuracy that is unmatched in the retail spectrum. Mind you, again, it's not just XRP that we update our private community members on. We have HBAR updates, we have XLM updates, we have XDC updates, we have ETH, Bitcoin. For any futures traders or commodities traders, we have gold, we have futures. We even have forex pairs here in our private CYPRX community via institutional deltas and dark pool updates on a daily basis. If you guys want access to any of this information, you can always head over to CYPRXtrading.com, lock in with us in the Discord. We made it a subscription model so that way you guys can try it out for a month. If you like it, stay. If you don't, cancel your subscription and move on. But I guarantee you that you guys will want to stay because the level of accuracy that we deliver here in this community is unprecedented. With that being said, do me a favor, smash that thumbs up button and subscribe. Make sure that you guys rewatch this, highlight those levels and those key areas of interest on your charts. Make sure that you guys are setting alerts and alarms. I will see you guys later on the week to give you guys any further updates. Many blessings. Be cognizant, be aware out there, and I'll see you all in the next video breakdown.